The clock is at 0, and another Cougar game is in the books.
Clock fronting the snap. Tony Johnson is the holder. Here's the kick. It's blocked. And BYU trying to run it back here. Jack Kelly, who just made the defensive play, and now he does this. 50-plus yards on the blocked field goal return for the touchdown by Jack Kelly for BYU, and they're on the board first and 10 BYU from the 44. It's L.J. Martin. He's got some space. L.J. Martin for BYU inside the 20. 15. 10 still on his feet. Finally brought down the 6. Bachmeier pass out. It is caught, and it is Roberts for the touchdown. 4 touchdowns last year for Roberts, first of the 2025 campaign, and it's 13-0 Cougar. Meyer throws to the end zone, and that's what they get. Caught by Noah Noliaki, the tight end for the touchdown. Successful. This trick play to Cody Hagan now. And Hagan heads up. Cody Hagan trying to take it to the house, and he will. Touchdown, BYU. And now a fumble for Portland State. BYU's all over it, and they're going to recover at the Vikings' 5-yard line. Second down, Bachmeier. Keeper. He's in for the touchdown. Got a great block there for the tight end Carson Ryan as well. This team is clicking here tonight. Bachmeier. Oh, one of the moves for another touchdown. Look at this. Why not? 56-yard attempt here for Will Farron. And it is good. How about that? That ties the BYU school record for longest field goal ever. It's an incredible atmosphere. And look out, off to the races here is Dominic McKenzie for the touchdown. Hagan hands off to Miska, and he's in for the touchdown. Charlie Miska.
All the reaction, then the post-game interviews. The Cougar post-game show begins now on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome in your Cougar post-game show. I'm Christian Esparza Alex Napoles. Joining me, BYU getting the first win of the season, 69-0 over Portland State at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. What a win, Alex.
I think first and foremost, we have to talk about, it's exciting that football is back. It's great to see Utah, just kicked off their game. BYU just finished their game. Utah State also walking away with a win. It's phenomenal to have football back, but I'm ready to dive into some BYU because there's a lot of positives that I think a lot of people can take away from this one.
Yeah, it was a great game. I mean, I think personally 69-0 is a far better victory than I thought BYU was going to get. I mean, I know Portland State coming to Lavelle Edwards Stadium for week 1. Most people were expecting a victory, right? But 69 points and holding Portland State to 0 is pretty dang impressive. So what a win.
I think it's the way that it happened, man, because you head to the end of the first quarter, it's 14-0. I think at that point, right, you're still figuring things out. You're still trying to get people to click, and you're still trying to really get a rhythm going. And then you 35 points in the second quarter. That is absolutely phenomenal. And a lot of those are thanks to your true freshman quarterback, Bear Bachmeier, which I'm sure we'll dive into here momentarily.
Yeah, and what a way to start off year number 10 for Coach Kalani Sitake, right? Coming into, spending a decade with the program is a incredible achievement for anybody, and for Kalani to do it the way he has, especially having the season that they had last year for BYU, building all that momentum, and now everybody's taking BYU seriously. So I think this is kind of a statement win for Coach Sitake, saying, you know what, we fully expect ourselves to be contenders in the Big 12 this year. And just going out there and putting on a show for everybody in Provo. Amazing win. But you're right, Alex. We have to start with Bear Bachmeier, true freshman, obviously getting the first true freshman to ever start the season for the Cougs. So let's start with that. What impressed you most about the Bear?
The way his ability to see down the field, see when there is that open space to tuck it and run. There was a little bit of talk about him having that ability to tuck and run and having that awareness to tuck and run, but seeing it in real time and seeing that even as a true freshman, even in his first game, playing at this level, playing at the FBS level, it was fun to watch him tuck and run. And he looked poised. He looked like a leader. And I think that's what really stuck out to me with Bear Bachmeier. A lot of positives with his feet, a lot of positives in I guess, the BYU run game overall. But Bear Bachmeier, off to maybe a little bit of a slow start. I think there was a couple throws, in that first quarter where the connection just wasn't there. And I'm assuming, that's going to be freshman jitters. That's going to be first game jitters. But I think once you really were able to move past that, and once you were really able to get clicking and get going, especially after that Jack Kelly return, Bear Bachmeier looked a lot more impressive.
48 carries, 468 yards on the ground for the Cougs. Crazy.
It's incredible.
Crazy.
It's incredible.
Bear Bachmeier had 5 of those carries for 32 yards and a touchdown, including an incredible Superman dive. That was probably my favorite play of the game because that kind of encapsulated to me Bear Bachmeier finding his confidence, right? And I like the way you started talking about, honestly starting off the game. He started off pretty shaky, right? He missed some throws. He had a throw on a key second or third down, and it was high and behind the receiver. And it's like, BYU can't be having that all year. And I started to get worried, but then they kind of found more of a rhythm with some shorter throws and getting the completions up and letting the receivers make plays or the running backs make plays in open field. And then eventually you started to see Bear Bachmeier find that confidence and kind of settle in and really just take a deep breath, because it is 64,000 people going crazy at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. And the broadcast brought it up a few times, like he was playing at some high school a year ago today. Right? And to go and play in front of one of the most raucous environments in all of college football, night game 1 of the college football season. 2 or 3 months ago, he didn't even know he'd be starting. So yeah, it's going to take a little bit for him to settle in, but this is why Portland State was such a good matchup for him, right? Because it's an opponent that you should take care of business with. And BYU did just that. And it all starts with Bear, and he found himself. And the stat line he finished with, right? 7 of 11, 97 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. And then we brought up his rushing stats, 5 carries for 32 yards and an additional 2 touchdowns. 5 total touchdowns in your debut game. What an awesome start for Bear Bachmeier.
5 total touchdowns. I think anybody can hang their hat on that and build on that. That's a great way to start for a true freshman. Again, I loved his ability to tuck and run. The Superman dive, I think, was just the icing on the cake and the cherry on top of this performance for Bear Bachmeier. And it's hard to be a little bit nitpicky when you just came off a 69-0 win. Yeah. But 97 passing yards, that to me is a little bit concerning, but obviously it's something that I think will eventually come with time, right? Like I said, there was, especially early on in the first quarter, there was a couple throws and a couple of miscues where the ball was underthrown or Bear Bachmeier and his receiver weren't on the same page. And I think, again, that's just something that you're going to anticipate and something you're going to expect from a true freshman coming into his first ever start. But it is, you wanted him to get over the 100 yards, maybe even closer to 150, but 97 total yards through the air, that's a little bit concerning. But other than that, I think Bear Bachmeier looked great. And like I said, 5 touchdowns, it's hard to be critical about that, especially when he had that kind of performance. But 97 yards is what sticks out to me.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, he only played the first half, which is less than I thought he would play. Right. I thought he would get 3 quarters in. And then McKay Hillstead started the second half, and then we saw a lot of Trayson Bourget before moving to Hagan, the 4th string quarterback. So 97 yards across 2 quarters isn't eye-popping, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's worrying, especially looking at some of the completions he did get. 50 of those 97 yards were to Carson Ryan on one drive. He had the big pass down the middle to open up that drive. And then LJ Martin popped off a long run, setting up a nice 22-yard touchdown pass again to Carson Ryan, making a great catch, by the way. Carson Ryan on a ball that was, truthfully, it was underthrown. But Ryan was able to showcase his abilities as an elite tight end for BYU. So, I think, again, when you start off shaky, you've got the freshman jitters. There's a lot going through Bear Bachmeier's head, but once he found that confidence and started to stretch the field a little bit, I started to feel more confident in him. And I can only imagine, not only did he feel that confidence in himself, his teammates felt it in him, as well as Coach Aaron Roderick. And I'd imagine they're going to push the ball downfield a little bit more next week against Stanford. That was my only critique is, again, 2 nice passes to Carson Ryan, but I would have liked to see Bear Bachmeier stretch the field just a little bit. Bourget took a deep shot and it fell incomplete, but I was like, man, I wish we could have seen some more of that during the game. But all in all, incredible first game for the true freshman Bear Bachmeier. I'm really, really pleased with what we saw. And dude, his physicality on the ground was awesome.
Oh yeah. He's not afraid to run over some guys, right? He's not afraid to run through some guys. And I think you want to see that from a true freshman quarterback. And you want to see that from a young guy coming in in his first football game at the FBS level, right? His awareness, again, to just tuck and run and put that head down and try to find some yards, try to find some space. That's one of the things that really stood out to me from Bear Bachmeier. And again, I mean, just a massive credit and a massive props to this BYU rushing attack, right? You end up the night with 468 yards.
That's a ridiculous number.
It's an insane number. And then plus you have LJ Martin with 8 carries and 131 yards. LJ Martin, he was one of the guys that we talked about earlier this morning about he's one of the guys that needs to have a successful season in order for Bear Bachmeier to find success. Sure enough, in his first game, he goes for 131 yards. The only thing missing from LJ Martin's performance tonight was the touchdown. No touchdowns on the night for LJ Martin, unfortunately, but I'm sure he'll be happy with the 131 yards.
I think the one thing that is like keeping him from being a perfect running back is just the breakaway speed. And we saw it. I mean, he had the breakaway touchdown, right? But ultimately just not being able to pull away at the end and reach that next gear. But still hitting a 49-yard run and putting up 131 rush yards on 8 carries. That's 16 yards a carry. He's going to have a huge role for BYU this year, and everybody knows that. And a healthy LJ Martin is not something that we have seen a lot of.
Right.
And tonight's game, and even going back to the Alamo Bowl against Colorado, really show you what a special player LJ Martin can be. So definitely excited to see more of him this year. And I really hope that he can stay healthy for all 12 games plus whatever postseason may come. But man, he is really something special when he's got the hot hand.
And I think it makes a difference, right? When you have to go through an off season and a fall camp and a spring camp, really not having to worry about being banged up, right? I think one of the bigger storylines with LJ Martin was the fact that coming into last season, he was banged up and he was dealing with injuries. And he kind of, he kind of had to be aware of that as you were going through spring and fall camp. But this season, it sounds like he was a lot healthier. He was in a lot better spot. And so it probably makes a big difference when you're able to just focus on your development, when you're able to just focus on getting better. And I think it bodes well for LJ Martin to, again, come into this season healthy and start off with that stat line.
Yeah.
Missing the touchdown, but a healthy LJ Martin, it goes a long way for BYU.
You are watching or listening to the Cougar Postgame Show. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles, co-hosting tonight. Let us know your thoughts. Chime in on X at C Esparza Sports, at Napoles Alex, or tweet at KSL Sports. Let us know your thoughts. We're not doing post-game calls in this new format. So if you want to give some input on this BYU 69-0 victory over Portland State, hit us up on social media. And we'll get some live reaction on there. Really appreciate everybody tuning in.
We're also on YouTube, and we do have the YouTube tab. Yep, we have the YouTube tab up. So if you also want to send in a comment there or let us know anything there, we'll also be able to take any of your reactions and your responses on YouTube as well.
I think the most encapsulating thing about this game, though, I mean, going back to Bear Bachmeier, 97 yards through the air. My biggest takeaway was like, this BYU roster is so good. All Bear has to do is just follow the plan, right? Keep the car on the road. Chase Roberts was amazing. We just talked about LJ Martin. Carson Ryan had some huge plays. Cody Hagan made some nice opportunity out of his touches as well. I think BYU's offense, and we'll talk about the defense later in the next segment, right? But this offense and it's Portland State, right? But it looked like a well-oiled machine. It looked like this could be a really special team. And unfortunately, you've got the true freshman hanging above it. And what sort of ceiling does that put on BYU's season? And Bear showed us some really, really, really hopeful things. And I can't wait to see how he progresses throughout the year, because truthfully, I mean, if they get even average quarterback play from Bear Bachmeier, I think this team is going to go really far. 69 points is nothing to scoff at.
Absolutely not. And I know, it's an FCS team, and Portland State hasn't had the greatest of starts to the season, but I think that this is a perfect confidence builder for BYU more than anything, right? You have Bear Bachmeier came out and he passed the test, right? The test tonight for Bear Bachmeier was going to be, how are you going to perform? How are you going to look? Are you going to look the role? And I think tonight he did. And so I think no matter what, putting up the 69 points against Portland State, it's a great stepping stone and a great way for you to build some confidence, right? I think the biggest thing you wanted tonight was to get Bear Bachmeier some confidence. And for the most part, I think you're able to do that with the 69 point win over Portland State. And again, he only played that first half, but still he looked the part. He came out, he looked great. And the players around him, I think, are just going to elevate him. Chase Roberts maybe wasn't as involved during the game, maybe as much as he wanted to, or maybe as much as Bear wanted him to, right? Only had the one reception for 4 yards, but I think that connection is something you're going to get as the season progresses. Parker Kingston, even a big name from last season returning, coming back, he also only had one catch for 5 yards. And so the passing game, I think, will come. The passing game is something that will need to be worked out and figured out. Going on just 138 yards throughout the course of the entire game. Bear only having 97 of those in that first half. It's something that's going to take a little bit of time to develop. But you do have the cast and you do have the guys around him that give you the confidence that will come around, because Chase Roberts is an exceptional leader. Parker Kingston is an exceptional wide receiver. I already like the Carson Ryan to Bear Bachmeier connection that we saw. And so he's one of the guys that we talked about this morning. He was flying under the radar, and sure enough, he goes and he proves it by having some, 2 incredible catches and 2 incredible plays.
Yeah. One area I want to highlight is turnovers. I think it's incredible to come in, and unfortunately you do lose the fumble on the punt return early on in the game, right? Parker Kingston getting the ball hit out of his hands, and that set up Portland State for what looked like a drive that they could get some points on, but then they block the field goal and BYU save some points there, and they return it for a touchdown. So all in all, I mean, the offense didn't turn the ball over, and starting some inexperienced guys at quarterback, that's your biggest worry is, does Bear take care of the football? And he did. So Kingston, I know letting that one go really hurt. And I know obviously Kalani Sitake probably hated it, but what was encouraging is that Kingston remained in the game. He still returned, I think, another punt or 2 after that. I know Tiger Bachmeier got some reps at punt returner, but Kingston also got some touches on offense. So, I mean, he definitely wasn't punished for it, and I don't think he needed to be punished. But all in all, clean day on the turnover sheet. Penalties were fine. I think in the first half, as far as the starters go, there were only, I think, 1 or 2 penalties in the first half. So that was relatively clean. And that
there was a big one there where you have Asiata.
The targeting.
Right.
And I was going to get to that when we talked about defense in the next segment, but you're right. Thanks for reminding me there. That is one of the 2 penalties that was in the first half. It was a targeting and a holding. We'll save thoughts on that for defense, but all in all, sure. I think aside from those two plays, right, the lost fumble on the punt return and then the targeting call on defense, clean day from BYU's offense. Winning the turnover battle is going to win you a solid 75% of your games, and that's where it starts.
Right. That's keeping the ball. I think that was the key for us earlier today. Was protecting the football and making sure that Bear Bachmeier felt comfortable and making sure that you didn't turn over the football. And I think BYU did a great job of that. Defensively, maybe he had chances and maybe you wanted to see a little bit more of getting the ball back, but I think it means a lot for the offense to keep ball security.
Who would have thought that Jack Kelly would have the first touchdown of BYU season, right?
I know, man.
That was awesome,
I did not have it on my bingo card, but first of all, that kick was not the best. That kick was not clearing.
Portland State's kick.
Yes, Portland.
You were
State's
a kicker
kick.
in high school, so you can judge this.
It was not a great kick. It was not going to make it over the line.
Tomapea right in the face, man.
Exactly. Tomapea didn't even have to put his
he didn't
hands
even
up.
jump and block it.
No,
right
I think he was just trying to force his way through the line, and then the ball ended up hitting his face, and it was perfect. It was perfect. Great heads up play for BYU's special teams, and then Jack Kelly, of course, making the play to pick it up and run it back for the touchdown. And I think that really swung momentum. Like I said,
for sure,
it felt like BYU came out, and I don't know if it was first game jitters. I don't know if it was relatively because the true freshman was coming out for his first snaps and his first play in a live game in true action. But it did seem like BYU got off to a slow start, and that really changed and swung momentum for BYU.
Yeah, that's when the floodgates opened.
Exactly. The second Jack Kelly ran that back, not only did Lavelle Edwards Stadium come alive, not only did was the crowd now behind this team, but it absolutely changed the momentum and the swing in this one.
Last thing I want to touch on. Two more things I want to touch on offensively for BYU. First off, Will Ferrin is the GOAT. He has to be, right.
Oh yeah.
Tying the school record 56-yard field goal, just cause why not? 2 for 2 on the day. I think that was awesome. Really high expectations after an incredible season last year. So to come in and, I mean, that's the one thing that's nice about kicking is it's like, it doesn't matter who you're going against. If it's an FCS school or an SEC school, right? Kicking the ball is kicking the ball. So that was awesome to see Ferrin do that. And I know that Sitake, Coach Sitake is stoked to have Will Ferrin as his kicker, because having that, knowing that you have a kicker like that to rely on when you're, say your offense sputters out, a dude that can hit a 50-yarder and you don't even think twice about it. Like, that's such a special weapon for BYU. So that was great.
Well, and I think last season, one of the things that made BYU so successful was their ability to create plays on special teams, right? There was the fake field goal at UCF. There was so many big plays on special teams last season where, specifically looking at the Kansas State game where Parker Kingston returns that and, Lavelle Edwards Stadium comes alive. And so it's great to see that special teams are going to continue to be a staple in this BYU and be a staple in BYU success. You have the block that leads directly to your first touchdown again with Jack Kelly. And then you got Will Ferrin. How do you follow up an All-American season last season? Well, you come in and you tie a record.
Do the same thing again.
You do the same thing again, man. And so it's awesome to see Will Ferrin go out there, tie that record. And again, continuing to know that BYU special teams are going to come in and create those plays and create those swings and be a part of this BYU success. I think that's a huge positive to take away from this one.
Yeah, and Kingston, even after losing the fumble, I mean, he still continued to shred on that as the punt returner. I mean, 4 total punt returns for 54 yards. He had a long of 31. So he's going to be dangerous. And we saw him do it last year. And again, I mean, you can say it about almost every single position group at BYU. Like, they are returning so much talent all across this roster.
Right.
The ceiling really is sky high for BYU. The last thing I want to touch on offensively before we go to break here, backup quarterback battle. And this was something that I was interested in because the depth chart came out and it said between McKay Hillstead and Bourget. So even though it was Hillstead and Bear that were the last two men standing, taking the first team reps during training camp. So Kalani Sitake elaborated on that, and he said, yeah, we like the competition, right? And that's what led to Bear being the starter, is the competition. Iron sharpens iron. And it was kind of that deal. So they want that competition to continue to fuel and make that entire room better. McKay Hillstead started the second half. He had more passing attempts, but ultimately I felt like Trayson Bourget played longer. Hillstead had four completions on 5 attempts for 33 yards. He did have a pretty good run as well, but he slipped and fell. And then Bourget, 1 of 2 for 8 yards. But again, he had that deep shot that was really close to being a nice chunk play. But
right.
I don't know. Do you read into that at all, or do you think it's kind of just McKay is the 2 and Trayson is the 3?
No, I think it could still be an open competition, and I feel like that kind of that's kind of how I read it and how kind of I see it. Right, with both of them coming in, is you want the ability to see both of them taking live snaps, taking live game reps, because that's just something you can't replicate in practice, right? You playing against a different team, playing against playing in game scenarios, right? And so you allow yourself the opportunity to see both McKay Hillstead and Trayson Bourget to maybe kind of give you a little bit of a tell, and maybe give you a little bit of an edge to figure out who's going to be your QB2 going forward. And I think both of them came in, and like you mentioned, both of them came in, did some great things, and so I'm curious to see what comes out of it if a QB2, if a true QB2 is officially named for BYU, and whether that be Hillstead or whether that be Bourget.
All in all, though, we saw a lot of nice things from a lot of these depth players on offense that we probably won't see much throughout the rest of the season. Jovesa Damouni, 7 carries for 44 yards. Dominic McKenzie had 1 carry for 41 yards, and that was the touchdown.
How awesome was that, man?
Dude, that was, again, like this tall, skinny guy, and I think he's a redshirt freshman, but it's like one touch of the game, breaking it off for a run. And that by that time, BYU was running away with it anyways, but it's like, that's got to feel so good when you can just throw whoever in there and it's going to work. So
as a coaching staff, I'd feel pretty excited about that, just because that you have some good depth behind your guys that you already know are going to be good, right? And so you allow yourself the opportunity to see Damouni, to see McKenzie come in and make some plays and make some, score some touchdowns and try to find some game rhythm with them, and they come in and they do a good job. And so I feel like as a coach, you're looking at that and you're I'm assuming you're happy with what you saw from your depth tonight as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. We got to take a break because we are also carrying this on the radio. We're going to take a quick 3-minute break for anybody tuning into the live stream. Again, this is the Cougar Postgame Show. I'm Christian Esparza with Alex Napoles. Chime in on social media at Esparza Sports, at Napoles Alex. We're not doing phone calls for this show, but you can definitely let us know your thoughts on social media. Tell us what you think about BYU's 69-0 victory over Portland State. So we'd love to hear your thoughts, but going to take a quick 3-minute break and then we will be right back. This is your Cougar post-game show on KSL Sports. Welcome back to your Cougar Postgame Show. I'm Christian Esparza. Alex Napoles with me, recapping an insane 69-0 BYU victory over Portland State in week 1 of the college football season. Alex, it's nice to be back. It's nice to be talking about football. BYU did so many great things. Last segment, we talked about their offense and Bear Bachmeier getting his first start, obviously, leading the Cougars to victory. But now let's talk defense, because that's going to be BYU's calling card this season.
Defensively, I think what stood out to me was, of course, the guys like Jack Kelly, like Isaiah Glasker, who in that first quarter and in that first half specifically came out and they looked like they were going to pick up exactly where they left off. There's a lot of talent on this defense that I think even today against an opponent that necessarily wasn't moving the ball, that necessarily wasn't having the best night on offense, but I still think that you saw some positives come out of this BYU defense. And of course, like I mentioned, the special team plays to go along with it was phenomenal.
Let's see. I have some notes. I want to read for you.
Ooh, he's bringing up the notebook.
I did. I put together a little notebook. I'm holding it up in my blur so people can't see what I wrote. No, this is what I wrote down. Note: wearing a cowboy collar automatically makes you a better linebacker. That's in reference to Isaiah Glasker.
Right.
And then I also wrote Isaiah Glasker and Jack Kelly were literally all over the field in that first quarter. And that's what you're going to see. I mean, they were in the first few drives, especially, it felt like Isaiah Glasker was there for every single tackle. And I don't know how he only finished with 3 total tackles on the stat sheet, because it truly does feel like he was all over the field and involved in everything. He was flying around, and this BYU defense in general was, but that's where it starts, right? With Glasker and Kelly too. And earlier we talked about Kelly's awesome fumble recovery for a touchdown to get the scoring started for the Cougars. But the defense is going to be BYU's main strength this year. And whenever the offense struggles, whenever they sputter, whenever they can't put up points, it's going to be on this defense to come out and create havoc. And that's what we saw today. And ultimately, Portland State did kind of take advantage of that with some screen plays. There was one of their biggest plays of the game. And it was only like a 15, 20-yard play. It was a tight end screen because BYU's defense was simply just everywhere. They were flying around, getting upfield. And so you pop the tight end screen there, get behind the line, and take advantage of everybody being so aggressive. But after that, BYU definitely calmed down a little bit. And when I say calm down, I mean played more sound defense, right? They played their gap. They didn't get too far in the defensive or into the backfield because you don't want to get hurt by screens over and over again. But I mean, for a team in Portland State that's still trying to figure out who the heck their quarterback is going to be, the Cougs didn't make it easy. CJ Jordan, 8 of 14 for 58 yards on the day. Their other guy, Tyree Smith, 2 of 6 for -2 yards. They also held Portland State to, get this, Alex, -5 yards on 24 carries.
Wow.
Truly a phenomenal effort from BYU's defense tonight.
And I think you look at that number, and I think you attribute that to 9 tackles for losses, man.
Crazy.
9 TFLs in this one, and I think that's probably that's probably what sticks out the most to me when I look at the box score is the fact that BYU was able to get in the backfield and get in the backfield quick, and the ability to take down the runners, and the ability to take down and stop the run prior to it really getting going with those 9 TFLs. Like I said, Portland State really didn't get much going, and I think a lot of that is credit to the pressure that Jay Hill and this defense brought this game. 9 TFLs, I think, is a perfect embodiment of why that is.
We also saw some big guys putting in work in this game, right? Not just the linebackers coming off the edge, but we mentioned John Tomapeo getting the big blocked field goal with his noggin there. He also had several tackles in this game. And then Anisi Purcell, nice to see him get back there and get a sack, because the sacks we've brought up over and over again, it's not something that BYU had. So it feels kind of unfamiliar to have multiple sacks in a game for the Cougs. So that was nice. And again, truly, it starts with the defensive line, right? But from there, the Cougars completely just dominated this game in the trenches, and that allows your linebackers and even your safeties to fly around and just make plays.
100%. And, I think one of the things that we talked about earlier to this morning too was, we wanted to see more pressure. We wanted to see BYU get more sacks, and we wanted to see them get into the backfield more and be disruptive. And I think, again, this is a perfect game where you're able to do just that, right? You didn't get, the 4 sacks that I think Alex Carey wanted for them this morning, but you still get 2. And I think that's a positive. And like I said, the 9 TFLs, and again, that's a confidence builder. That's something to hang your hat on as you prepare for week 2 and as you move into, what's next for BYU. And that's just a confidence builder. The fact that you were able to get out there and be that disruptive. Now that just needs to continue to translate and continue to be a calling card of this defense, is your ability to bring that pressure and make things uncomfortable for those quarterbacks.
Yeah. And it's nice to have, for the offense, a game against Portland State, right, to find your footing, let Bear Bachmeier get comfortable. But man, this defense, I think it was pretty clear that they're just ready to get going. They are ready to pick up right where they left off last season after a truly dominant performance against Colorado. And I mean, they're returning so much talent all across, and Jay Hill is ready to go. Jay Hill himself is fully healthy this season. So, I mean, really, I can't wait to see what steps forward this defense takes, because finishing at the top of the league, it's hard to imagine them making any improvement. But after watching this game, it's like, oh yeah, like this can be truly like one of the top defenses in the country. And the offense is going to need to help them out.
Yes.
But they have every ability to. Earlier, we brought up Ephraim Asiata and the targeting penalty. We got to get to that, because I think that was the biggest blemish on this game. I would agree. We saw Coach Sitake talking to Ephraim after the penalty happened, but that was really aggravating me, because you cannot be doing that, especially against Portland State, man. And watching the replay, it was pretty clear. The quarterback got rid of the ball, and Asiata just hits him right in the chin long after the ball was gone. And
right.
Sitake wasn't yelling at him when he talked to him. I don't know what he said, but like, again, you want to have as clean of a game as possible, and to have a 15-yard targeting penalty. No, not in week 1.
And you're disqualified. And you're disqualified.
Right. He's kicked out of the game. So that was truly disappointing to see. But I'm sure it's not going to happen again. That's one thing that, Coach Sitake is going to do, is let his guys know, like, hey, we can't be doing that. And I think part of why that was so shocking is because we don't ever see that from BYU.
Right.
Like that's not a thing that normally happens. So I was a little curious. I don't know if there was a motive behind that, if it was just a heat of the moment play, or maybe the quarterback had said something to him earlier or done something. I don't know, but that, I think, was my biggest disappointment of the day, was just a 15-yard targeting penalty, getting you kicked out of a game that you just didn't need to do.
Right.
So I was unhappy with that.
And I think, even as a young player, right, Asiata is just a sophomore. I think you need to have that awareness to see that the ball is gone, and that you need to you need to disengage from the play. As soon as that ball's gone, there's no need to continue through with that hit. And
yeah,
I feel like that's something you can get away with as a young player, as a sophomore, in a 69-0 win over Portland State. But the reality is, if you were to make that play, say against a Texas Tech or a TCU or something, right, and it's a close game, that could be costly.
Yeah.
Right. And so you don't want to see that continuously through the season. Get that out of your game as soon as possible, and just move on from it. Again, those are the type of mistakes, and those are the type of things that I think that you want to do, and you want to get away with in a big win over an FCS opponent. But the reality is, when you're in Big 12 play, those type of penalties and those type of plays, they're inexcusable.
Yeah, I think inexcusable is the best way to put it. So we'll see. I can't wait to hear what Coach Sitake has to say about it. Hopefully we're going to get to his sound tonight. We've got some guys in the press room awaiting Kalani Sitake. We haven't got even word that he's up at the podium yet, so I don't know how much longer that is going to be. But as soon as we get the sound, we will let you guys hear it, and I'm sure that will be addressed a little bit. So we'll see. But I want to talk about another safety, Talon Alfrey. I thought he had a really good game. We talked about Glasgow and Jack Kelly flying around making plays. Again, I don't know if it's just the cowboy collar, but I felt like Alfrey was there doing a lot of cleanup as well. I think that he showed a lot of skill, but a lot of depth talking about that safety group. I didn't really know what to expect from them coming into this year after Crew Wakely left. That was kind of a question mark for me, is how would the safety room look? But that's one of the reasons they were okay with him departing, is Jay Hill felt like this was a really deep room, and it wasn't just Alfrey. There were a ton of guys out there making plays. So I liked seeing the physicality from the safeties in the run game.
I think safety, that's a room that, maybe losing Crew Wakely, I think can hurt to an extent. But the reality is you have a lot of young players in that safety room with a lot of potential and really high ceilings. I look at guys like Satuala, Tommy Prasis, Raider Damouni, who's still a junior, right? He still has room to improve. Plus, you look at your seniors like Talon Alfrey and Tanner Wall. It's a stacked room.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate because I think Crew Wakely probably could have had a decent role in this safety room had he stuck around. But the reality is, even with him leaving, you still have a lot of players who can come in and play a significant role on the defensive side of the ball in that safety room, because it's very talented. And I think it's one of the most talented rooms that's kind of flying under the radar for BYU. As far as the defensive side goes, right? We talk a lot about the linebackers. We talk a lot about how deep and how great that linebacker room is, but the reality is the same thing can be said about the safeties. And there's, like I said, there's young guys coming up from that safety room that there's high expectations on a guy like Satuala, who I think can come in and be a key figure for BYU's defense for years to come.
Yeah, I agree. And that's one thing that's tough talking about defense, right, against this Portland State team, is it's hard to really learn anything in week one. When the defense is going against such an inferior opponent, no offense, but that's let's call it like it is, right? I mean, it's a 69-0 victory. It's clear from the first snap of the game that this defense was just leagues better than Portland State's offense was. So it's really hard to take anything away other than these guys, all 11 guys, are going to run around the field with their hair on fire every single play of the game. So I think they're going to have a great season as far as the defense, and holding your first opponent to 0 points is definitely a great start. And I love the negative yardage rushing for Portland State, like 24 carries for -5 yards. That is an average of -0.2 yards per carry.
Yeah.
So that's, again, definitely a great start. And it starts in the trenches, but I mean, goodness, you talk about the defensive line and then the linebackers and then the safeties, like boom, 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 studs all over.
I'm excited to see this defense play, a little bit of a step up. One of the things that I really like that Alex Curie brought up this morning was the fact that the way that the schedule set up, you're kind of allowing yourself to grow into your schedule, right? Though as the weeks go by, you'll be playing tougher and tougher opponents. And so this is probably the best and the easiest opponent you will see. But then next week, I think against Stanford, you'll get a much better test and a much clearer test to where this defense is. I think there's, like I said, there's a lot of positives you can take away from this game defensively. But next week, how do you replicate that? How do you build off of this performance? And I think that's going to be the question heading into Stanford next week. Yeah,
and interestingly enough, Stanford doesn't play today, actually. They played week 0. They lost to Hawaii, right? But they don't play today. And their second game of the year will be against BYU. So I would have liked to have seen them today so we can kind of get some more preview going into that game number 2. But guess we just got to take away from that Hawaii game, losing 23-20. And again, I like the way you're putting it. Like, you start off with an FCS school, Portland State, then you move up to Stanford again at home, and then you move up to East Carolina after your bye, right? So you've got a lot of room for improvement across those first 3 opponents, and it allows your team to kind of take it game by game, week by week, and not really worry about needing to jump right in and be amazing right away. When you have a true freshman at quarterback, there are going to be growing pains, and the opponent that BYU played today kind of covered some of those up. Bear Bachmeier wasn't perfect. Again, we talked about in the first segment, he was a little shaky to start things off, right? But there are going to be growing pains, and hopefully you can make a lot of improvement across these first 3 games before you get to a point where those growing pains are lethal to your season. But coming back full circle, BYU is going to have a much better roster than their opponent, definitely in these first 3 weeks. And honestly, through most of their schedule, I think that's what I came away with thinking today is this BYU team is absolutely stacked, right? And it's truly going to come down to the quarterback play and how they do. But it's the cliche analogy, don't crash the Lamborghini or whatever you want to say, right? Like, just don't mess it up, Bear, right?
Right. And again, it's a conversation and a topic that I think a lot of that I've seen online, right, is you can get away with average quarterback play because of the veteran players around you, right? And one of the things and one of the comments that really stood out to me this week from Aaron Roderick was the fact that he said, look, the biggest strength and the best thing about this offense is the fact that we have veteran players. And so I think for Bear Bachmeier, it's just leaning on those guys. That's going to be truly the key to the success for not only for Bear, but also for this BYU offense, is just leaning on those guys to lead you in the right direction.
They've been there.
On the veterans. Yes, they've been there. They've been in this situation, right? You go back to 2 years ago, right? There was a quarterback battle. There was, it was Keaton Slovis who started the season, and then Jake Retzlaff had to come in, right? There was there was turbulence at the quarterback room. Then last season, you come in to the preseason in a QB battle. Jake Retzlaff takes off. You have a tremendous season, and those guys have seen it all, and those guys have been through it all. And so the veteran guys will get you through this. Bear Bachmeier, like you bring up, Christian, just drive the Lamborghini.
Don't crash it.
Don't crash it.
Don't even speed.
Don't screw it up.
No, the speed limit.
Don't even speed, man. Don't even speed.
Yeah. Trust in LJ Martin. Trust in Chase Roberts. Trust in your offensive line. Trust in your defense.
100%.
This BYU team won 10 games last year plus an Alamo Bowl. And that was way more than anybody was expecting. And that gave them the offseason expectations of a Big 12 championship. And we even heard it after last season. Like, they weren't necessarily disappointed in the way the season ended. They knew that they had so much talent returning that they had the potential to have an even higher ceiling this year. So that's the benefit you have when you have so much returning talent, is these guys went so far, so deep, made such a name for BYU. Like, they literally put BYU football back on the map last year, right? And now you have this opportunity of having a tremendous roster, and just don't screw it up.
A tremendous roster and a deep roster, right?
A deep roster, yeah. A lot of talent.
I think there's a lot of talent in this roster, and the fact that and they showcase that tonight, right? You're able to come in and pull basically all your starters at halftime and rely on those guys to come in the second half. And I think there was a lot of things and a lot of positives that we saw from those guys in the second half. And so there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of depth on this roster. And so I think, even with the quarterback situation, even with relying on a true freshman coming in and playing his first snaps and playing his first games as an FBS quarterback, you still have the talent around him. It's something that's been talked about all offseason long, and you saw it tonight. And I think that BYU is still set up in a good spot to succeed this season.
Still awaiting head coach Kalani Sitake. We're going to see if hopefully we can carry some of his post-game press conference. But while we wait, Alex, do you think that Bear Bachmeier played better than McKay Hillstead and Trayson Bourguet tonight? I know everybody kind of saw limited snaps, right? But did it look like Bear Bachmeier was the best quarterback for BYU?
I think at times it did. And I think at moments it did. And I feel like we would be able to better answer this question, had we saw McKay maybe take a run with guys like Chase Roberts, with guys like Parker Kingston, right? With your number ones, with your starters. But I still think that it comes down to coming in, not carrying yourself like a freshman, not looking like a freshman. And I think Bear Bachmeier did a phenomenal job of that. And so that's why I'll give the edge to Bear Bachmeier. And that's why I can see why the coaching staff have elected to go with Bear Bachmeier as QB1.
I think from what I took away, Bear's floor looked a lot better than everybody else's floor. And I guess the weaknesses in his game are that he's inexperienced, and that's going to fix itself throughout the season, right? McKay, he had a good run, but he didn't really push the ball downfield as much. And Bourget only had 2 passing attempts, so it's really hard to take anything away there. But I think with Bear Bachmeier, I want to focus on him is he showed that if all else fails, he can take off and run and take a hit. And that's something that, unfortunately, I don't think you're going to get from McKay. I think he would be very cautious to get out of the pocket. And again, we saw him have a nice run, but he immediately got to the boundary and then he slipped and fell, or maybe he slid. It looked like a slip to me. But whereas Bear, there was one play, especially where Portland State's defense, their linebackers dropped really deep, and Bear immediately just tucked it and ran and picked up the first or caught close to it. But he's big. Like he is big and he is strong. And then we saw, I called it the Superman touchdown, right? Where he took off and from like the 4-yard line, he jumped and just extended. And that's not the type of like elite athleticism that you're going to get from Hillstead or from Bourget. So just simply having that special athleticism, that unique athleticism to rely upon while you're trying to figure out the game as a passer, I think that showed why Bear Bachmeier won the job. And I think that his teammates have confidence in him. He showed some nice connection with Carson Ryan. And obviously, I think it speaks a lot that, when they got to the goal line and they had a passing attempt, immediately it goes to Chase Roberts, right? Like it shows, again, lean on your veterans and they'll lean back on you. They'll trust you to make plays when it matters. So ultimately, I liked what I saw from Bear. I think that, to me, at least, it showed why they chose him to be the starting quarterback over the other guys in the room. But I also think that they have enough experience, speaking of McKay and Trace and Bourget, that if push came to shove and they needed to get another quarterback in there, I wouldn't mind either of those guys getting playing time, because I truly think that, especially with McKay, just feel comfortable saying that because we saw him play at Utah State. I think he can bring in some relief when needed. But I got pretty excited watching Bear out there. I'm not going to lie to you, Alex.
It was exciting, especially once you got to that second quarter, and I felt like, it felt like he really got going. The slow start, we can get past it. You can move on from it. But that second quarter, I think there was a lot of positives you saw from Bear Bachmeier, and really the entire offense that you can hang your hat on and be proud of, and say that this is what BYU offense is going to be this season, and continue to build on that, right? Like I said, continue to build on that, take that into week 2, and now see what you're up against week 2 against Stanford at home, man.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big game because obviously BYU coming in off of the 69-0 win over Portland State in week 1. Stanford's coming off a loss at Hawaii, so they're going to be feeling a little weird after that. But I'm curious to see, again, BYU coming in. We talked about their defense looking like they were running around with their hair on fire, right? Are they going to come out and be just as aggressive against Stanford? And I would assume so. And it's just a fun team to watch. Like when everybody's clicking like that, when you've got guys like Glasker and Jack Kelly that can really just move around and do anything that Jay Hill wants them to do, like that's not normal. Teams don't normally have one defensive player like that, let alone 2, right? So I think, they're ready to eat all season, and especially with this preseason non-conference schedule, I think they know that there's going to be opportunity there to make a lot of plays and put themselves on the map. And I can't wait to see what they do.
I can't wait to see it either. I can't wait to see how they go into that Stanford game. And again, I think one of the things that you have to watch out and keep an eye on heading into Stanford now is you can't go into it a little too overconfident, right? I think you got I think you did a phenomenal job against Portland State. 69-0 is a great score line, but now you build on that performance and you don't get too overconfident with what you did in week 1, right? It's a new week. Build on your positives and move on from Portland State, right? And focus on Stanford, and don't head into that game too overconfident, because you're going to be at home. You're going to have those 6,000 plus behind you. It could be an easy situation to find a little overconfidence in yourself, right? But I think Kalani Sitake and the coaching staff do a great job of keeping these guys grounded, and so I think leaning on the coaching staff in that aspect will be key heading into week 2.
Yeah. Another thing that I'm keeping an eye on is Waylon Lapuaho wasn't able to get the go tonight. Yes. He's dealing with an injury. Left guard, returning player, saw some time last year, and I know that he's going to be a key piece along that starting 5. We don't know exactly how long he's going to be out. Sounds like they're confident he'll definitely be back in time for Big 12 play. I wonder if that means that we won't see him next week. Maybe they're planning on bringing him back after the bye in that game against East Carolina, but you never know. But that offensive line crushed it tonight. I never really felt like Bear or Trayson or McKay were really ever like in duress. I know there were times where they probably felt a little bit of pressure, but there were quite a bit of, well, I mean, it's not like they dropped back a ton, 12 or 18 passing attempts, right? But it felt like on probably 15 of those 18 passing attempts, they had however much time they needed in the pocket.
Right. And again, you like to see the growth of the offensive line, especially when you lost so many, what I felt like were a lot of key pieces last season, right? You lose a couple of seniors. And so the question was, heading into this offseason, right, can you replace those seniors? I think Connor Pay is a huge piece to lose and a huge leader to lose in that room. But Bruce Mitchell was up to the task tonight. I'm excited to see what this offensive line looks like when Waylon Lapuaho is ready to go, because he is a phenomenal player, and he is probably going to be that next Connor Pay type leader that you have in that room heading into this season. And so I'm curious to see how that line will look as you head into a little bit more physical Big 12 play, right? Can you continue to dominate the line of scrimmage? Can you continue to protect your quarterback the way that you did in week 1? Once you head into a very physical and a very good Big 12 conference when it comes to line play. And so that's something that I'm going to be keeping an eye on as the season continues.
You just put up 468 yards on the ground without Waylon Lapuaho. You think they could have crossed 5 bills if he was in?
Possibly, man. Possibly. And you know, obviously I think had the starters stayed on a little bit longer, I think for sure you probably definitely could. But you know, putting up 400 plus yards rushing is absolutely phenomenal. And again, how do you continue to build on that success?
All right, we are still awaiting Kalani Sitake. His post-game sounds like they took a while in the locker room. I'm sure, you know, after week 1, he probably has some extra to say.
They're probably fired up. They're probably dancing in the locker room, right? There was videos of Kalani dancing pregame with the fans, firing up the fans that were in Lavelle Edwards Stadium early. And those are the videos I love to see on social media, right? I think Mitch Harper posted them on the KSL Sports page and on his page, right? There was the videos of Kalani Sitake coming in and firing up the crowd with his dance moves. And so I'm sure there was probably a little bit more of that in the locker room. And you know, not completely related to the game, but heading into that fourth quarter, right? The ESPN broadcast and everything, and everyone showing the dancing and everyone having fun, you know, in between the quarter. I thought that was really great. Because that just goes to show, I feel like the state of where this roster is, of where this team is, they feel good, they feel confident, and I think they and you absolutely should, right? Especially you don't want to show that you're worried. You don't want to show that you're not confident in your true freshman quarterback.
Yeah,
and so I think that you know, it's all fun in games, but I think that speaks a lot too to the mentality and the vibe inside the locker room. It's a very tight knit group. It's a you can see the family, you can see the camaraderie, and I think that's amazing.
You need to have that. You need to have that kind of looseness, right?
Exactly.
My favorite part of the broadcast was when it showed Pops Sitake on the side.
Oh, yeah.
That was awesome. That was quite the surprise there. Quite the treat. That was cool. And they talked a little bit about how involved he is with the BYU program and almost like an extra coach. And he looks just like Kalani. So that was pretty cool.
He does.
So that was cool to see. But again, you are watching or listening, however you're consuming, to the Cougar Postgame Show. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles joining me. Feel free to chime in on social media at C Esparza Sports, at Napoles Alex on X. Let us know your thoughts. We're not able to take phone calls through this live stream, but we'd love to still hear your thoughts on social media. Tell us what you think about BYU's 69-0 win over Portland State. We got one more segment coming up, hoping to hear from Kalani Sitake, get some of his thoughts on this big win. So stay with us, and we will be right back after a quick break. You're watching the Cougar Postgame Show on KSL Sports. Welcome back to your Cougar Postgame Show on KSL Sports. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles with me. BYU getting a huge 69-0 victory over Portland State to start their season off. What an impressive victory for the Cougars, Alex. Dominated the game all around.
Great game for BYU to start. Great win to start. I think there was a lot of questions, of course. The biggest storyline in fall camp this season was the BYU quarterback position. I think a lot of those questions were answered tonight. I think BYU fans can I think BYU fans can feel a little bit better now heading into week 2, knowing that Bear Bachmeier came into this game and passed his first test. Now the question is, how are you going to do in week 2? How is test 2 going to go for you? And I think all eyes will continue to be on Bear Bachmeier throughout the course of the season.
Speaking of Bachmeiers, let's talk Tiger. It was nice to see him get some snaps in. He had some punt returns, got a couple touches on offense. I think that's a relationship that's going to continue to grow. Obviously, having the connection, being brothers, is going to be huge. And you talk about BYU's receiver room. I think that's a little bit deeper than I was anticipating. Maybe I was just overlooking it, but like Chase Roberts at the top, you see Parker Kingston able to make some plays. Cody Hagan is kind of a gadget player, and then Tiger Bachmeier coming in, and I'm a big fan of JoJo Phillips, who we didn't see much of tonight, and then Carson Ryan as the receiving tight end. So I really like BYU's receiver room, but I think the connection between Bear and Tiger is something that we didn't see a ton of today. I think Tiger had one catch, one catch for 8 yards, but I'm excited to see that throughout the season because that A-Rod's going to try and cook something special for that brotherly connection there.
The Tiger Bear connection, man. I think everybody's waiting for it. But I feel like that goes back to one of the things we talked about at the during our first segment is just the fact that the passing game tonight, at times there was some misconnect. There was some underthrown passes from Bear Bachmeier. There was some situations where I think you could have moved the ball a little bit better through the air. And that's the one knock. That's the one, miscue that I'll give BYU in this game is the fact that it's going to take a minute to truly build that chemistry, right? You can build so much chemistry during fall camp. You can only build so much chemistry during the week prep. It's a lot different when you're actually in between the lines in a game situation. And so I feel like that's just something that's going to come with time, right? You look across all the receivers. Chase Roberts just had the one catch. Parker Kingston just had the one catch. Tiger with one. LJ Martin had one too. Cody Hagan, Joesa Demooney, and Carson Ryan were the only receivers on BYU tonight to have multiple receptions. And even then, they only got 2.
They had 9 total players getting a reception, by the way.
Which is great. Which is great. But now I think you want a little bit more production as far as getting multiple guys, multiple receptions, right? And getting a little bit more yardage. And again, I think that's just gonna come with time, and that's just gonna come with figuring out the connection between Bear Bachmeier and the rest of this offense, the rest of that receiving core. Yeah,
and Bear only had 11 attempts, right? But you think about 2 again to hammer it in to remind you. He was not even here in the spring.
No, he wasn't.
And so to come in and end up as the starting quarterback after a crazy turn of events and a training camp, a fall camp where you have a battle and you establish yourself as the starter. Yeah, it's going to be hard to build that chemistry with your teammates, but that's one thing that's going to be nice is we're literally going to be able to see that week to week between Bear Bachmeier and all of his receivers and all of his teammates. And it sounds like they're all big fans of him, but I think that there are a lot of weapons for BYU, for Bear, for Aaron Roderick to take advantage of. So
right.
There's going to be a lot. It could be a lot of fun here.
Even the guys that we didn't really think we're going to be talking about a lot tonight, like a Joesa Demooney who came up and showed a lot, not only in the passing game, but also in the running game, right? You get the two catches for 14 yards. You have the 7 carries for 44 yards, a long of 12. And so again, I think it just goes to show that this BYU team is loaded. There is depth. And there is a very, very good supporting cast around Bear Bachmeier, but it's going to take a minute for them to figure that out. Chase Roberts, he's going to be the key. He's going to be a key to this offense, and having him only have the one catch, it's disappointing, yes, but I think that as the season goes on, Chase Roberts will be able to have multiple catches and hopefully multiple touchdowns. Man, last year was absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, last year he was phenomenal despite not having the most touchdowns, right? But
that number's going to be a lot higher.
I hope it's going to be a lot higher for the sake of Roberts, for the sake of BYU, and of course for his draft stock, man. And this is a guy who is going to be playing on Sundays. This is a guy who is going to be playing at the next level, and so I hope he just continues to build up that tape and continue to build up his resume as you know, he looks at ending his season and his time at BYU on a positive note.
All right, Kalani Sitake and the players are done at the podium. Let's let you hear from Coach Sitake. This is what he had to say following that big 69-0 win.
Okay, well, sorry being late. Happy you got the win. Proud of a lot of things I saw in the game. Obviously, I'm going to be a coach and say that it wasn't perfect. And there's a lot of places that we can improve on. But I was really proud of the entire team from beginning to end. And at the beginning, we had some rough times. I mean, I think we punted the first series. Defense gave up some plays, got the turnover. And so the blocked field goal kind of was swung the momentum our way. The guys never looked back afterwards. Even coming in after halftime, I really liked what our ones were doing, but we knew that game was pretty much done, and so we put our reserve guys in the second half, and I was really proud of the way that they played. Got some really good, valuable reps and great competition that we were able to see from them, and I thought they performed at a high level. So that's going to help our depth, I wish Portland State best of luck the rest of the way. I mean, I know they got banged up in this game and the game before, so hopefully they can get healthy and be ready to play the rest of their schedule, especially next week. So, but proud of the team and looking forward to next week. I think you can make a lot of improvement from week 1 to week 2, and looking forward to getting that done, watching the film. But overall, just really excited about what we saw from them tonight.
There you go. That is Coach Kalani Sitake's opening statement. We can't carry the full thing, but we can post the full thing on our podcast platforms. We're working on getting that posted, but I think the biggest thing, and one of my favorite things about Kalani Sitake, is he's extremely respectful as a coach. Get to hear his pregame pressers every Monday, and he always talks about respecting their opponent and wanting to give them a good game, almost like a ceremonial type thing. Like it really does feel like it is special to him, and it's important to him to respect his opponent. And obviously beating somebody 69-0, you're going to have a lot of really good feelings after the game, but Coach Sitake keeping it classy, keeping it respectful. So I love to hear that. Love to hear it. And one of my favorite conversations that we had this morning was the embodiment of Kalani Sitake being BYU football. And you hear it every time he takes the podium. You hear it every time he's able to talk to the fans, and he's able to talk to the media. He is the embodiment of BYU football. He's the perfect guy to lead this team. And one of the things that he said was obviously, of course, figuring out how to carry the momentum into week 2 and building off of a positive performance. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing to watch out for as we navigate through the prep of week 2 and as you get ready for Stanford, right? Is just continuing to take the positives and move on to the next game and build off of what was already a positive performance against Portland State. All right, that is going to do it for our first Cougar postgame show of the season. Catch us again next week after the Stanford game. That's an 8:15 p.m. kick, so going to be a late night there, welcoming Stanford to Provo after they lost to Hawaii. So I'm curious to see what BYU looks like. Again, 69 points is a huge victory. So how do they parlay that into their game 2 opponent? Absolutely. That's the question, and that's what we're going to be watching out for as the week goes on, man. Alex and I get just a little bit of a break, and then we're going to be live with the Ute post-game show coming up. That game's at halftime, so probably about an hour and a half-ish. So if you're interested in the Ute post-game show, catch us then. But if not, we'll catch you next week. Again, this is the Cougar post-game show brought to you by KSL Sports. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week.